Yes. I have a question about Green Line, sir.
Sure.
Are you hearing anything from the provincial government now that they've had the city's business case for a number of weeks? Where things are at?
I don't have anything official. I understand that the federal government is looking at the business case as we speak.
So we have to wait for the federal government.
We have to wait for them both.
Steve Allen seems to think that a line from the seat ending in City Hall is a better way to go in the Green Line. What are your thoughts about that?
He's wrong.
Can that happen, sir?
Did you want more?
Can that actually happen?
For Steve Allen to be wrong?
No.
I do love Steve Allen. I really do love Steve Allen. He's a wonderful man. But on this, he is unfortunately incorrect. And as I've said before, when Mr. Gray, who I also love, raised that idea, the problem is they're thinking of this as an engineering project, not a transit project. You actually have to get people where they want to go, not just draw a line on a map, dump them off in the east end of downtown and hope that they will be able to get to work.
So any of the engineering challenges then are easily overcome, I guess?
I wouldn't say easily, but I would say we've been working on them with some of the world's best engineers for a long time, and I'm confident we'll be able to do this.
So where does this opposition come from? Because this has been debated endlessly for years, it's been decided.
Yeah.
Yet
I mean, you should ask Mr. Allen that question. I'm sure that he sincerely believes what he believes, but he is wrong.
Mayor, what do you say to people who may be supporters of you who might not like the decision you made today, who might have wanted you to, continue perhaps on social media to continue to after Stampede or even to the original administration's recommendation?
Obviously, administration changed their recommendation not based on political pressure of any kind, but actually based on 10 more days of data. I'm a little bit irritated that I only have till last Wednesday. I would have liked to have the weekend's data as well, but those 10 days showed really, really good uptake in the second doses. Well, we saw a real decline in infection back to what it was last summer. So I've always said I will make the decision based on data, and I made the decision based on the science and on the data.
Hoping the temperature gets kind of turned down now that this bylaw will be repealed, because it's been a quite a divisive issue amongst people, and this whole COVID situation.
Well, I really hope so, And look, we're in political silly season, so people will do political silly things. But this was irresponsible. When you get people fired up, when they start sending letters to council saying, I know your children and I know your address, and calling them Nazis and fascists over such a tiny gesture to keep people safe, politicians shouldn't do that. It's irresponsible. And to have a politician like the Premier, who last summer made a big speech about how the city should make this decision for him, and masks are a symbol of Alberta pride, to now be making jokes about it, it's irresponsible, and it just fuels this stuff.
What is your reaction to the desecration of these churches in town?
Oh, you missed my great quote earlier.
So maybe you can give me the great quote again.
I will repeat it. I'm deeply committed to reconciliation. I'm deeply committed to anti-racism. But I will tell you that from a human perspective, from an ethical perspective, but also from a practical perspective, desecration of monuments and churches is very wrong. It's wrong from a human and ethical perspective because these are places that a lot of people of faith, including me, look to for solace and comfort in difficult times. And I really believe that doing this doesn't actually help you gain converts, if you like, to the movement of reconciliation. We're at a point where people are really feeling reconciliation in their hearts in a way they never have before. And this kind of division just hardens people's hearts. So I remember exactly what the elder said to me last week, which is we've got to move forward in unity as one people, not in division. So it doesn't mean ignore the history. It doesn't mean don't reckon with the history. I saw a picture today of November 10th, 1989, people taking sledgehammers to the Berlin Wall. I don't think anyone has forgotten the Berlin Wall. And I think most of the people who were saying don't desecrate monuments probably were pretty happy about the sledgehammers in the Berlin Wall. That said, mob rule is never good rule. And I think that we as Canadians are at a point where we can move forward in kindness and compassion, not in anger and division.
But surely you acknowledge there's a distinction between, toppling monuments of individuals who directly responsible for residential schools and, desecrating the church, right? I mean, those aren't.
I think that we can have these conversations, rather than someone pulling down a statue in anger. Let's talk about the role of that statue and where it should go. And it may well be that the community will say, no, we don't want that there. In fact, it likely will be that. But let's have that conversation first.
Well, what do you say to those people who do say, either subtly or not so subtly, that, for instance, in the case of Catholic churches, full disclosure, I'm a Catholic, they have it come because they did things during the residential school times, and it's, what do they expect? And you do hear that. You can go to social media, not just from a few people.
But you know what? That church is not just the place for the Pope. It's the place for the elderly parishioner who just wants to go to Mass every day. And so ultimately, I think we need to focus our anger. And I will tell you that the comments of the pastor of the Grace Presbyterian Church that were out on the weekend were frankly full of grace. They were very thoughtful in terms of how to move forward. And I can see that people are angry, but I heard an elder who is still a practicing Catholic and a residential school survivor talk about how that is actually very difficult for them because while they recognize the horrors that have been done, they still identify as Catholics. And when you burn down a church or desecrate a church on a reserve, on a First Nation, remember that the parishioners are also First Nations people.
And similarly, I've been in churches in places like in Calgary.
Yeah, and so similarly, yes, should we hold people to account? Absolutely. Should be looking at the right ways to do reconciliation? Absolutely. But I just don't think that vandalism or violence is ever the answer.
Getting back to the mask bylaw, once that's repealed, that means that bylaw enforcement isn't able to do anything.
That's right.
So for those businesses that want to keep a mask rule in place, they then have to call police if
Yeah,
someone's
that's
giving them a
right.
problem?
There's still trespassing rules in place, so you can set who is allowed to enter your private premises, but bylaw officers will not enforce. Truth be told, bylaw officers were very rarely enforcing within private businesses. Usually the business was handling that on their own. What?
This morning, Councillor Sutherland, I believe, said that there were extremists on both sides of the mask debate. Do you think that that's a fair equivalency?
I actually don't on this particular one. There are certainly extremists on every side, but I have not seen pro-public health extremists threaten people the way that I have on the other side. All right, thank you.
Thanks, sir.